Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 7 short stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Today's episode is sponsored by my 3D printing website. Visit dangly3d.com, where you can pick up your very own cute articulated dragons, your own Carmen Chameleon, Karma Stories channel mascot, and yes, it comes with cookies, or you can get a keychain or other fidget devices on there as well. Check it out for yourself at dangly3d.com. Alright, on to today's short stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Board Eastly. Do not interrupt when I'm talking. This was a few years back. After over a decade of doing a complex job above average, getting many compliments and letters of thanks, my new boss was irritated at me interrupting. My role was everything the technical people didn't do. Trash duty, phones, conference room, calendars, contracts, finance, training, facilities, purchasing, equipment, etc. It was realistic to say that a couple times a day, some wildfires, often technical work stoppages, needed the boss's input. This, even after I headed off many problems before they reached his attention. About a couple weeks in, he told me that under no circumstances was I to interrupt any conversations he was in. And like a good little bootlicker, the second in charge added that he too was tired of my interruptions and needed to stop. As karma would have it, not even a day later, both of them were deep into a conversation about baseball, absolutely nothing to do with work, and normally I would have interrupted. They both saw me multiple times and didn't ask what I needed. I waited patiently with pleading eyes while they stretched out their conversation. After a few minutes, I started shifting foot to foot, probably looked like I needed to use the bathroom, and yet they didn't stop. Finally, when they soaked up all the fun they could and ran out of baseball things to say, the boss, in a very snarky tone, asks if there's something I needed him for. Yes sir, your boss's boss, Mr. Nameless here, is waiting on the phone. I could see the blinking phone line from where I was standing, and he was indeed still waiting, and he needs to speak to you right now. Not one smirk or iota of disrespect from me, but I did leave to use the bathroom even though I didn't need it. Policy cancelled right after that call. Laugh out loud. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Saucy McSauceface. Beautiful name. You are my new hero. Well played. Just watch your back. They sound like the kind of people that would throw you under the bus. Another user down below called OKGrape2063 said, sorry really big boss. I was instructed to never interrupt. Boss and Big Boss are having an important conversation about baseball. They will be with you shortly. I 100% agree with this commenter. I would go back to the boss every 3 to 5 minutes and remind them that I can't interrupt them because they're having a conversation about baseball. Wouldn't you have loved to listen in on that conversation once the big boss finally got them on the phone? And they had to explain what was so important that they couldn't take the call right away. This story comes to us from Sigback. Very compliant, not so malicious. Okay, here's a small but extremely satisfying one. I needed some t-shirts screen printed for a little horsey summer camp I ran. Logo, summer camp, and camper's name, or for staff, their role, lunger, coach, etc. Went to a big chain store that offers this. I've used them multiple times before, and they are great and usually about €10 per shirt, with logo name, etc. And get it done while I browse the store. For some reason, I went to get the ticket and estimate, and it's quoted at €32 per shirt, just for screen print. I'd bought the shirts already, so I asked for a price breakdown. €10 for the logo, €10 for one line text, name or role, €10 for another line of text, Summer Camp 2024. €2 to do it right away. No other orders are in queue. I say, whoa, pull up the company site and say, I would like this service where we design the shirts and then one logo is printed that includes names and camp name and line logo. This is all one color, minimalist line logo. And it's this listed price, like we usually do, and the employee wasn't having it. I can absolutely respect that. Let's go by the book to the letter. So I said, no thank you, went on to Instagram, pulled up like I was making a story and put the logo, name and role, and the summer camp name, and then saved it like an image. Vectorized it on my phone's little photo editing app, and saved. Did that for each camper plus the coach and the lunger. Sent all the images to the store's workshop email. So one logo, which includes text as part of the logo, but the file is technically a vector picture and image for each person. And what do you know, it's actually only €8 for a picture only and non-urgent print. And all this time, I'd been paying 10. My satisfaction was palpable as I stated, okay, I want this logo on this size shirt, this logo for that shirt, etc., etc. And no, I don't want it rushed. Oh, I'm the next order in queue? Perfect. Compliance, or being a stickler, saved me money, and it felt really good. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called honeybadger0810. It says, I disagree that there's no malice here. You were expecting €10, they wanted to overcharge you to €32. By complying with their rules, you ended up paying €8. It's malicious because they lost €2 to €24 depending on how you count it. Or, as Lord Beckett might say, it's just good business. OP responded and said, okay, well I'm glad I put it in the right subreddit then. I certainly felt malicious in making sure I wasn't overcharged. It does make you wonder how many people have had to pay that exorbitant fee because they weren't aware of how to do the image thing like OP did on their phone. OP, I love how you turned their own website into your own personal discount handbook. That was absolutely awesome. This story comes to us from Result Downtown 3065. Every decision of care has to be run by you? Okay. Another post reminded me of this story. My mother was a nurse. She worked in the same medical and surgical unit for almost 30 years. Every year, a new set of medical residents would come through. They were mostly nice and eager to learn from everyone, including the nurses. However, there is always an outlier. One afternoon, one of the patients on the floor had an issue. I'm not sure what it was, but it had to do with some treatment that a resident ordered that was not agreeing with the patient. No problem, because this is not the first time this has happened in the history of this said treatment, and there is a written protocol on how to make adjustments. The seasoned nurses have seen this before and have made changes to this order hundreds of times. The nurse in charge did the adjustment and all was well. However, when the prescribing resident found out, she went bat crap crazy, yelling at everyone about usurping her authority. Then she said that any changes to care for her patients had to be approved by her first. Okay, game on. For the next week, this resident was paged for every single solitary thing, especially when the resident went on nap break during 36-hour shifts. This went on for 2 weeks because the resident complained to everyone, thinking that people would side with her. When she saw that the senior doctors or her fellow residents wouldn't back her up, she gave up and let the nurses use their judgment. Never mess with the nurses. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Bodacious Vermin. It says, this thing that's been working for years or maybe even decades isn't to my liking. I'm gonna use my title to change it up. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Another commenter called Mission Progress 674 said, there was a written protocol for F's sake. Someone in a higher pay grade signed off on that protocol. It isn't like the nurses are just winging it. Do you want to talk to the doctor in charge or the nurse that knows what's going on? From a bunch of the stories that we've read on this channel, it seems to me like a lot of new doctors have a bit of a god complex, like their crap don't stink, and they can do no wrong and everybody should listen to them, when in reality, they really should be listening to the nurses who have been there for a very long time and could honestly doctor circles around them if they really wanted to. Remember, nurses do twice the work of a doctor for half the price. This story comes to us from Illuminatus Prime. Electronic calculators are forbidden during the exam. Back in the dark ages, before the interwebs or mobile phones, one of my algebra instructors forbade any of us from using electronic calculators during an exam. He even wrote it on the blackboard in big letters. So there I am in the back row, whipping out the answers faster than anyone else in the class. Teacher comes up to me, holds out his hand, and demands I give him my calculator. I hold up my Pickett slide rule and say, "Do you mean this? I said no calculators during the exam. You said no electronic calculators during the exam. Show me where the batteries go and I'll give it up." He got a kinda thoughty look on his face and went back to his desk. I continued the test and turned in my answers about 30 minutes before anyone else. When I got my grade back, it was 98%. Missed 1 out of 50 due to a slipped decimal point. Of course, there were the usual calls of cheater, cheater from the other students, but F them, they should have studied harder. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Mick Crotch. It says, "Anybody who knows how to use a slide rule in this day and age earned it." OP responded and said, "That may have been the algebra teacher's philosophy as well." So I guess you could say that OP made a calculated attack on the rules. And this time the professor figured it was well done and they just had to let this rule slide. This story comes to us from Bookworm Trisha, "The right to not freeze my tush." Back in the dark ages, my town public schools required females to always wear a dress or a skirt and blouse, even in the snowy New England winters. Froze my tush walking a third of a mile to the bus stop and standing there waiting. Boys were supposed to wear dress pants and collared shirts. In high school, student lockers were in the school corridor, and the rules said we needed to remove coats, boots, and other outdoor weather gear there before entering the other rooms. So I and some other female students hatched a plan. When it got cold, we wore pants to school under our skirts, and removed them while standing or sitting in the public corridor. Teachers and principal got upset, but warm pants, corduroy, lined, wool, etc. were specifically listed in the manual. They were, of course, thinking of the boys, qualified as weather gear. When they said to go to a bathroom to change, I pointed to the student rulebook, saying weather gear had to be removed before entering the other rooms. More and more girls copied us, and they hated girls maybe accidentally flashing underwear while changing. It could accidentally happen, pulling down pants worn over skirts, and pants crushed the required neat appearance of the skirts. So we won the battle. Pants instead of skirts were allowed all day in winter, which we then stretched to rainy days in spring, and finally they gave up. We could choose to wear pants any day, which soon devolved to jeans and such for everyone. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Learn Japanese. It says, "My mom, 75, went to a conservative Christian university that had snow in the winter. They used to have a rule that women had to wear skirts and dresses to class and the testing center. One very cold day, a woman wore pants to the testing center. She was told to come back with a dress on. She went to the bathroom, removed her pants, kept her long heavy winter coat on, and returned to the testing center. She had a test that had to be taken that day. Her long winter coat made it look like she was wearing a skirt. She kept it on while she took the test. No one knew. Later, she told someone what happened. The school officials found out about it and decided to let women wear pants. Again, this was a long time ago." Something important to note after reading this particular story and the comment afterwards is that this is still happening in a lot of schools. There is one close by here that I can drive by anytime, summer, winter, fall, whatever, and all of the girls are outside wearing kilts. Being warm should be a basic right, and I don't know how some of these schools are still holding on to these archaic dress rules. This story comes to us from Newton's Fig, Ashes to Ashes. My sibling is super awful sometimes. Said sibling not only sued me for control over my late parents' estate, but they stole and sold off all kinds of belongings. They also did this while parent was alive. Stole, I mean. Sibling couldn't be bothered to even bring parent a milkshake when they were dying. I had to relocate in order to care for parent. Sibling was also mean to animals and did so to my own beloved fur baby, who I had to send over the bridge shortly after my parent died. Anyways, moving on, just trying to paint the picture lest the reader think I'm an awful person for what happens next. Sibling had agreed that I could have parent's ashes, and I let sibling have the flag that was presented for military service. Suddenly, many years after parent died, sibling decided they wanted some ashes. I, on the other hand, feel strongly that the remains should remain intact. No pun intended. Also, it brings me peace and comforts me, as weird as that sounds, having the remains nearby. So, after much thought and discussion, with a lot of awful words back and forth, I relented. Sibling even got family involved who don't understand our dynamics and sided with sibling. Anyways, sibling may or may not now have my late kitty's ashes on their mantle and may or may not believe they are my parents. OP, I completely understand not wanting to take on the catastrophic task of splitting up your parents. Your sibling really got burned by their own entitlement. I honestly think you handled that situation perfectly and you persevered through the ultimate sibling squabble. This story comes to us from Syzygy Zeus. Contractors keep calling my phone because someone else gave them my number. So for the past year, I've been getting calls from contractors asking if I want any work done on my property. They start off by calling me by name, which is not mine, and then asking if I live at a certain address, which also isn't mine. I tell them I'm not that person, please stop calling my phone. I tell them I don't own any property, please stop calling my phone. I ask them to put me on their do not call list. Sometimes they just hang up, sometimes they just get rude and say things like, "Why would we stop calling you? You gave us your number." For a long time, I would just hang up before saying anything because when the call connects, it makes this beeping sound when I pick up, so I know it's them before they even say anything. Well, after over a year of this, I decided to say, "Yep, that's me," when they ask if I'm the person. When they ask me if I still stay at the address, I say, "Yep, that's my house." When they ask me if I want any solar, landscaping, painting, or driveway work, etc. done, I say, "Yeah, I sure do." Then they tell me that they will have someone come out to my property. What time is good for me? I tell them a time when traffic is worst, like late afternoon. Then they call me when they get there and tell me they've been waiting for 10 minutes, and I tell them I had to go to the store real quick and I'll be back in 10 minutes. It's very satisfying. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Trenton. It says, "You're still not here? It's been half an hour, and I'll never be there. You guys ready to grow up and stop calling the wrong number? Or should I just waste all of your time every time you screw it up and don't take me off the list like I told you to?" OP responded and said, laugh out loud, "Exactly." Unfortunately, in this case, the people that are calling you are probably not the people that are actually showing up. It's probably a lead generation service that's calling, and the person showing up is likely a contractor who is actually going to be out money for this because they won't be getting paid their contracting fee if they don't set something up. And even if there is a provision in there where they get at least a little bit of something for showing up, it's likely not going to be what they would get for a full job, and they're out the time that it took to sit there when they could have been working somewhere else and actually making money. You know, you guys might actually be right. After 1,400 videos and like 4,000 stories on here, I may be a little jaded when it comes to my comments about the OPs and the situations that they're in, but sometimes it just stands to reason that things could have been done a different way. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.